4 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few tight ends I would start this week. The first guy's Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens. So a few people that were concerned about Andrews the first few weeks of the season where he didn't have much fantasy impact, but week 3 at the Detroit Lions, he cracked 100 yards with 5 catches and 109 yards in week 4. He's got a tough matchup on paper at the Denver Broncos, but let's be honest here, the Denver Broncos, they haven't beat anyone, in my opinion. They beat the Jets, Giants, and the Jaguars so far this season, so this will be the toughest test to date here for this Denver Bronco defense, and I think Mark Andrews in this one, he could find the middle of the field, he could find the seams, and I think in this one he gets 60 yards and finds the end zone, and he's pretty much a start each and every week, but this week I like him a lot. The next tight end I would start this week's TJ Hockenson of the Detroit Lions. So Hockenson in week 3 had a down ball game versus Baltimore, only 2 catches for 10 yards, but the first 2 weeks of the season he had big ball games. Week 1 versus the 49ers, 8 catches, 97 yards, a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion. Week 2 at the Packers, 8 catches, 66 yards, and a touchdown. And week 3, like I mentioned, he put in a dud of a game. But week 4 at the Chicago Bears, division matchup, I think it's going to be a defensive type of battle between these two teams here. But I think Hockenson, he can make a few plays, and I think he finds the end zone with 40 or 50 yards and a touchdown with a bounce-back week here in week 4. The next tight end I like this week to start is Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons. So far, Pitts, he hasn't lived up to the hype in the first 3 weeks of the season here. Is the rookie tight end. Week 1 versus Philly, 4 catches, 31 yards. Week 2 at Tampa, 5 catches, 73 yards. And week 3 at the Giants, only 2 catches for 35 yards in that ball game for Pitts. So right here, Pitts, he's got a pretty good matchup versus the Washington football team that have gone up and down the field and torn them up so far this season. So Kyle Pitts, I think this week is finally the week he might get first career touchdown. Even I've been saying this last week, I said it about him. But this week, I think it's time for him to get going and step up his Pitts. And I think in this ball game, he finds the end zone versus the Washington football team. The next tight end I would start is the Washington football team tight end, Logan Thomas. So Thomas, he was good last season coming out of nowhere. And so far this season, he's been pretty solid for fantasy owners with 2 out of 3 double-digit fantasy days in PPR leagues, including a touchdown last week at the Buffalo Bills. 4 catches, 42 yards, a touchdown, and a fumble loss. And in week 4, he's got a great matchup at the Atlanta Falcons that really can't stop anyone on defense. And this ball game could be a mini shootout, in my opinion, versus Washington and the Atlanta Falcons. Both teams haven't stopped anyone this season on defense, and both offense have pretty good playmakers that can find the end zone and make plays. So in this ball game, I think Thomas once again goes for 40 or 50 yards and finds the end zone. And the 5th and final tight end I would look to start this week's Rob Gronkowski of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Gronk last week, a little bit of an injury scare, leaving that ball game with a rib injury, but the x-rays were clean. He came back and he finished the game, 4 catches, 55 yards at the Rams. So he's got 4 touchdowns so far. And week 4 is a vengeance game, and a game where these guys want to show up and elevated. He wants to show up Belichick. And like I said about Tom Brady in the start video for quarterbacks, I think Gronk in this one has a huge game, over 100 yards, and finds the end zone twice in this one, because Belichick, obviously, he didn't really want Gronk and Brady at the end over there in New England and wanted to move on. So right here, this is a game of vengeance here for Brady and Gronk, and both these guys are going to go off. And like I mentioned, it's not going to surprise me to see Gronk get 2 touchdowns and 100 yards in Gillette Stadium. So that's a few tight ends I would start here in week 4 of the fantasy football season.